if I cough or something or have to blow my nose, excuse me. We did a lot of sort of updating and looking at trends at first. I won't get into all the details, but we had quite a discussion on, of course, employment issues, which continue to be an issue. One of the things that one of the people from Citizenship and Immigration said was that the employment-related services is fairly flexible now. So I think that was something that I think our eyes open. In other words, if there's barriers, you can make some proposals to help assist in finding and sustaining employment. One of the things we talked about actually that interested the funders there was that as we would introduce new programs, like perhaps summer programs for youth and children, or other programs, women's programs, what it does is it ends up increasing the overall clients that we get because of the child coming into a program, then a family that never accessed services are now accessing services. And that's going to be something that's going to continue as we get into all the new kinds of programming. And it probably would be a good idea in our narratives, if, as our numbers increase, if we could kind of feed that back to CIC about why that's happening. Okay, there was actually a question, this has to do with something that perhaps Wakazi could play a role in, and that's LIDS, the Landing Information Database. There was a question about why we can't get that, and that is information on arrivals by language, and I guess that comes out around November, and it's hard to access, so it was requested that perhaps by Wakazi we could make that available to all of the members. We had a fair bit of discussion about changes in where the newcomers are coming from. In our communities, where the south basically goes from Hamilton, Brantford over to Kitchener, Waterloo, and Guelph, and Niagara. And we're getting a lot of secondary migration, not just from Toronto, but also from Montreal, and even people coming back from Alberta. And the issue about the husband stays in Alberta and the family comes back, so there's all that separation of families that's part of that whole issue. And a lot of the people that are leaving the bigger centers for economic reasons happen to need a lot of settlement help, but they maybe also happen to have been in Canada for more than 5 years. So there's another issue in terms of service provision. We had one community that estimated that about 50% of their clients now are really not eligible. They're more NSP kind of eligible, just because of the change to do that secondary migration. So that's an issue. We talked quite a lot about regionalization and how that's rolling out in terms of the planning and how that fits with the whole planning of the Canada-Ontario agreement. I think what we'd like to see is what's the vision? Where are we going to be in 2010? What have kind of we spent so far? And I think a few people experienced negotiating contracts, and all of a sudden, that's cut out, that's cut out, that's cut out, that's cut out. We're not quite understanding that, so we'd like to get some clarification on how the planning is done. And ideally, with the new managers and in terms of the regional expansions, we thought, ideally, and this may or may not be happening to some extent, but it appears that decisions are being made at CIC regional level right now, at the Ontario level, by the existing managers, and the local managers are the ones that are going to have to deal with those decisions for the next 3 years. And we're just wondering, I mean, actually we would love to have input, but we would love it if the local managers were somehow involved in that, because we're just wondering how the planning for where resources are going to be is going to be affected by the regionalization process. So that is something that I'm sure that probably will come up tomorrow. I think that was, I think that summarizes basically most of the other things, unless there's a few people from South Region that have anything else. Any other questions?